Previous lessons, the elements in the intake subsystem that participate in the air supply for the formation of the mixture were covered. There is another element for regulating the amount of air intake, but it engages in a completely different way. An EGR valve directs part of the exhaust gas that mixes with fuel and air into the intake line. Why has exhaust gas recirculation become an inevitable part of the injection system in modern engines? Some consider it redundant because without it, the engine does not change its characteristics, and when it gets stuck, it creates major problems in operation. Is it essential? In the following presentation, you will get the answer to these questions. In the 70s of the last century, legal regulations appeared whose aim was to reduce the harmfulness of vehicle exhaust emissions. Emission regulations have become more stringent over time and are directly binding on vehicle manufacturers. In the exhaust gas of a gasoline engine, 3 harmful components are dangerous to health. These are carbon monoxide, hydrocarbons, and nitrogen oxides. Electronic engine control, fuel injection system, and catalytic converter affect the reduction of exhaust gas emissions. However, this is often not enough. Additional functions have to be introduced that reduce the amount of certain harmful components of the exhaust gas. The exhaust gas recirculation (EGR) system is designed to control nitrogen oxides. This harmful component increases its share in the exhaust gas when the temperature and pressure are expanded during the combustion of the mixture in the cylinder. Increased concentration occurs from partial to full engine load and when the mixture is lean. The EGR valve connects the exhaust and intake manifold, through which 6% to 10% of the exhaust gas is passed to reduce the combustion temperature in the engine cylinder. Using the EGR system reduces the concentration of nitrogen oxides by up to 40%. The exhaust gas is inert, chemically inactive, and helps to reduce the amount of nitrogen oxides. It is easily mixed with the mixture and thus introduced into the engine cylinder. Since there are no combustible components, it slows down and suppresses combustion, thus lowering the temperature in the cylinder. Also, the inert gases absorb part of the heat of the flammable gases. All this affects the reduction of the concentration of nitrogen oxides in the exhaust gas. EGR opens only under conditions of increased concentrations of nitrogen oxides. However, the exhaust gas introduction into the intake manifold cannot always be done at all states because it would disturb the engine operation. In the following cases, the EGR valve does not open. At a cold start and in the warm-up state, because the concentration of nitrogen oxides is low when the engine is cold. In this case, the combustion temperature of the mixture in the cylinder is lower, and the nitrogen is removed with the exhaust gases before oxidation and the formation of harmful nitrogen oxides occur. When the engine is idling, because then a small amount of the fuel-air mixture is burned, and the combustion temperature is low. When the throttle is more than 50% open, the EGR valve does not open, even though due to the higher combustion temperature, the concentration of nitrogen oxide has increased because the operation of the engine would be impaired. In acceleration state for safety as full engine power is required. In this mode, the engine runs for a short time, and the increase in the concentration of nitrogen oxides is negligible. If the EGR valve opens in any of the above cases, the number of revolutions and power drop adversely affect the engine operation. So, the EGR valve is open only in a partial engine load state up to 50% throttle opening. Then, in addition to lowering the concentration of nitrogen oxides, EGR reduces the possibility of auto-ignition of the mixture and simultaneously reduces fuel consumption. There are internal and external EGR. Internal EGR is little known and is used in vehicles with a variable cam adjustment system. These systems have variable valve opening times. During regular operation in the exhaust stroke, the intake valve is closed and the exhaust valve is open. The piston moves toward the top dead center, forcing inert gas from the cylinder into the exhaust pipe. At the end of the fourth stroke, the exhaust valve closes and the intake valve opens. Then the first stroke begins, and the suction of the fresh mixture into the engine cylinder. When the partial load state occurs, the conditions are created to start the internal EGR. The system rotates the intake cam to achieve an earlier opening of the intake valve at the end of the fourth stroke during inert gas discharge. In that case, the inert gas is diverted not only through the exhaust pipe, but also into the intake manifold. At the end of the fourth stroke, the exhaust valve closes, and the piston moves to the bottom dead center while the intake valve is still open. First, the inert gas is sucked from the intake manifold, then the fresh mixture. In this way, the engine sucked in the appropriate amount of inert gas with the air-fuel mixture, which is the goal of the EGR regulation. Some manufacturers use a second variant to extend the exhaust valve closing time through the initial part of the intake stroke. Then, during the first stroke, the exhaust gas from the exhaust pipe is sucked in simultaneously with the fresh mixture. Then the exhaust valve is closed, and until the end of the first stroke, only the air-fuel mixture is sucked from the intake line.